Caleb Thornton cut the rope, and the woman dropped into his arms like a dead thing. But dead things don't grab your shirt. Dead things don't whisper. She opened her eyes, black burning, full of something that made his chest hurt, and said 3 words that changed everything. They killed everyone. Her blood soaked through his coat. Her fingers dug into his arm. And Caleb Thornton, who hadn't cared about living or dying in 8 years, made a choice. He wasn't letting her go. Welcome to Wild West Stories. If tales of courage, redemption, and unexpected love speak to your heart, subscribe now and stay with me until the very end. Drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far across America and beyond this story travels. Caleb Thornton drew his knife and cut. The rope snapped. The woman fell. He caught her before she hit the ground, and the weight of her nearly buckled his knees, not because she was heavy, but because she was alive. Barely. Her skin was cold, her breathing was shallow. Blood caked in her hair, and bruises covered every inch of visible skin. But she was alive. "Easy," Caleb said. "I got you." Her eyes opened, dark, deep, terrified. "No." Her voice cracked like dry wood. "No more. Please, no more." "I ain't one of them." Caleb held her steady, his voice low and rough. "You hear me, I ain't gonna hurt you." She stared at him. Her hand came up shaking weak and touched his face, like she was checking if he was real. "They killed them," she whispered. "They killed everyone." Then her eyes rolled back and she went limp in his arms. Caleb stood there holding an unconscious Lakota woman surrounded by crows and the smell of smoke on the wind. His horse stamped nervously behind him. The smart thing would be to leave her, walk away. A white man harboring a Lakota woman in Wyoming territory was asking for a bullet in the back. He lifted her onto his horse and climbed up behind her. The smart thing had never been his way. The ride took an hour. She drifted in and out, sometimes mumbling words he couldn't understand, sometimes gripping his arm so hard her nails drew blood. Once she said a name. "Harlan?" Caleb's jaw tightened. "Judge Harlan," she said again, clearer this time. "He wanted the land. He took everything." Marcus Harlan, the hanging judge. The man who owned half of Wyoming and wanted the other half. Caleb had heard the stories. Everyone had. Men who crossed Harlan disappeared. Women who refused him wished they had. And anyone who tried to fight back ended up swinging from a tree with a sign around their neck. Caleb had spent 8 years staying out of Harlan's way. That was about to change. He carried her into his cabin and laid her on the table, lit the lamp, started cleaning her wounds. She woke up while he was wrapping her ankles. "Stop!" Caleb looked up. She was watching him with those dark eyes, her body tense like a cornered animal. "I'm helping you," he said. "I don't know you." "Name's Caleb Thornton. This is my place. You're 10 miles from Elkhorn Crossing, and you're safe here." Safe. She laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "Nowhere is safe. Not anymore." "What happened to you?" She was quiet for a long moment. Her eyes moved around the cabin, taking in the exits, the weapons, the single door. Calculating. This woman wasn't just a victim. She was a survivor. "My name is Winona," she said finally. "My people camped at Crow Creek. 37 of us. We traded with settlers. We caused no trouble." Her voice hardened. "Then Harlan's men came with papers and badges. They said the land was his now. My uncle showed them the treaty. They laughed at him. And then they started shooting." Caleb's hand stilled on the bandage. "Everyone?" he asked. "Everyone. Men, women, children, my grandmother, my cousin who had just learned to walk." Her eyes were dry, but her voice shook. "They burned the bodies, burned everything. And me." She stopped. "They took you. I killed one of them." A ghost of something pride maybe crossed her face. "Put my knife in his throat when he tried to touch me. So they decided to make an example, beat me, hung me up, left me for the crows. How'd you get loose? The guard got drunk, passed out. I worked the rope with my teeth for 3 hours until I could reach the branch. She flexed her raw, bloody fingers. My grandmother always said I was too stubborn to die. Caleb finished wrapping her ankle and stood up. Your grandmother was right. Winona pushed herself up on her elbows, wincing. You need to listen to me, Caleb Thornton. When Harlan's men find those cut ropes, they'll come looking. They'll track your horse. They'll find this cabin, and they'll kill you for helping me. Let them come. You don't understand. He has dozens of men, deputies, hired guns, men who enjoy killing. I understand fine. Then why? She grabbed his wrist, her grip surprisingly strong. Why risk your life for a stranger? Caleb looked at her hand on his arm. Small, bloodied, shaking, but holding on. Because I know what it's like to be left behind, he said quietly. And I swore I'd never let it happen again. Before she could respond, a sound cut through the night. Hoofbeats. Caleb moved fast, grabbed his rifle from the wall, checked the window, counted the torches in the darkness. 5 riders, he said, coming in from the south road. Winona was already off the table, swaying on her feet but upright. The cellar? Caleb said. Under the rug. Get down there and stay quiet. I can fight. You can barely stand. I've fought in worse shape than this. Winona? He turned to face her. I ain't askin'. Get in the cellar. If things go bad, there's a tunnel that comes out 50 yards past the barn. You take it and you run. Don't look back. She held his gaze for a long moment. Something passed between them. Not trust, not yet, but the beginning of it. If you die, she said, I'll be very angry with you. Noted. She pulled back the rug and disappeared into the darkness below. The hatch closed. Caleb took a breath, checked his rifle one more time, and walked out onto the porch. The 5 riders pulled up at the edge of his property. Their torches cast jumping shadows across the yard. The one in front was young mid-20s with a scar across his cheek and the dead eyes of a man who'd stopped feeling things a long time ago. Evening. The young man's voice was friendly, too friendly. Name's Jennings, Deputy Jennings. We're looking for something that got away from us earlier today. That's so. Lakota woman, badly hurt. We tracked blood to your land. Jennings tilted his head. You see anything, Mr. Thornton? And no, I ain't seen anyone. Funny thing. Jennings swung down from his horse. Because those tracks lead right to your door. Lot of tracks around here. Lot of animals. Animals? Jennings smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Sure, mind if we take a look around? I do mind. See, that's the wrong answer. Jennings took a step forward. The other 4 riders spread out hands, moving to their guns. The right answer is, yes, sir, come on and search wherever you like. The right answer is cooperation. The right answer, Caleb said, is you getting off my property before I put a hole in you. Jennings laughed. You're going to shoot a deputy? I'm going to shoot a trespasser. What badge he's wearing is his business. There's 5 of us, old man. I can count. Caleb raised the rifle slightly. Question is, can you? Because I figure I can drop at least 3 of you before you get me. Maybe 4. Which 3 you want it to be? One of the riders shifted. Another glanced at Jennings uncertainly. Jennings' smile faded. You know who we work for, he said. I know. Then you know this ain't ending here. The judge doesn't forget. The judge doesn't forgive. You might have bought yourself a night, Thornton, but that's all you bought. Then I'll enjoy my night. Jennings stared at him for a long moment. Then he turned and mounted his horse. We'll be back, he said, with more men, and when we come back we're going to burn this place to the ground with you inside it. Looking forward to it. The riders turned and headed back into the darkness. Caleb watched until their torches were just pinpricks of light in the distance. Then he lowered the rifle. His hands were shaking. Winona was waiting at the top of the cellar ladder when he came back inside. "I heard everything," she said. "You shouldn't have done that." "Done what?" "Defended my home. Made yourself a target." She climbed out of the cellar, moving carefully. "You could have given me up. They would have left you alone." "Maybe." "Then why didn't you—" Caleb set the rifle down and walked to the fireplace. Started building up the fire. His back was to her, but he could feel her watching him. 8 years ago, he said, I buried my wife, Margaret. She got sick and I watched her die slow over 3 weeks. Couldn't do anything to help her. Couldn't save her. Couldn't even get a doctor out here in time." He paused. "I dug the grave myself, frozen ground. Took me 2 days. And when I put her in it, I figured I might as well climb in after her." "But you didn't." "No, I just stopped living instead. Went through the motions. Fed the animals. Fixed the fences. But inside—" He turned to face her. "Inside, I've been dead for 8 years." Winona was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "My husband died 3 years ago. A fight with soldiers. He was trying to protect our people." She touched the beaded bracelet on her wrist. "I wanted to die with him, but my grandmother needed me. So I stayed, and I kept going. Not because I wanted to, but because she needed me to." "And now?" "Now she's dead. They're all dead. And I'm still here." Her voice caught. "I don't know why I'm still here." "Maybe," Caleb said slowly. "We're both still here because we're supposed to help each other." Winona looked at him. In the firelight, her face was half shadow, half gold. "You believe in fate, Caleb Thornton." "I didn't used to." "And now?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. "We need to talk about what comes next," Winona said. They were sitting across from each other at the table now. Caleb had made coffee weak but hot, and found some dried meat and bread. Winona ate slowly, carefully, like someone who hadn't had food in days. "Jennings wasn't bluffing," Caleb said. "Harlan will come." "With an army?" "Probably." "Then we can't stay here." Winona set down her cup. "This cabin is a death trap. One way in, one way out. They'll surround it and burn us alive." "Where do you suggest we go?" "The mountains. 3 days' ride. I know caves there that no white man has ever seen. We could hide. Wait them out. And then what? Hide forever. Better than dying tomorrow." Caleb shook his head. "Running doesn't solve anything. Harlan will keep killing. Keep taking land. Keep hurting people. Unless someone stops him. And you're going to stop him, one man against a judge with connections to Washington. If I have to." "That's not brave, Caleb. That's suicide." "Maybe." He met her eyes. "But I've spent 8 years not caring whether I lived or died. And now for the first time I've got something worth fighting for." Winona's expression shifted. Something flickered in her eyes, surprise maybe, or recognition. "You barely know me," she said quietly. "I know enough." "What do you know?" "I know you killed a man with your bare hands to protect yourself. I know you chewed through rope for 3 hours rather than die. I know you're sitting here planning strategy when most people would be crying in a corner." He leaned forward. "I know you're a fighter, Winona, and right now I need a fighter." She was silent for a long moment. "There's something you should know," she said finally, "about why Harlan attacked my people. It wasn't just the land." "Go on." "There's a valley behind Crow Creek, hidden. My grandmother showed it to me when I was a girl. The rocks there shine with yellow metal. Gold, you call it. Lots of it." Caleb's stomach dropped. "Harlan knows about it." "He suspects. His men kept asking where the treasure was. That's why they tortured me. They wanted the location." She paused. "I didn't tell them." But you're telling me, because you saved my life, and because if we're going to fight Harlan, we need something to fight with. Her eyes hardened. That gold could buy us allies, weapons, men. It could buy us a chance. Caleb sat back, his mind racing. How far is this valley? 2 days' ride, through territory Harlan thinks he controls. She smiled grimly. It won't be easy. Nothing worth doing ever is. So you'll help me. You'll fight. Caleb looked at this woman, beaten, bloody, bereaved, and still planning a war. He thought about Margaret, about the years he'd wasted waiting to die. He thought about the look in Jennings's eyes and the torches in the darkness. I'll help you, he said. But we do it smart. We don't throw our lives away. We plan. We prepare. We pick our fights. Agreed. And Winona. He held her gaze. If we're going to do this together, I need to know you trust me. Can you do that? She reached across the table. Her hand, small, scarred, steady, touched his. You cut me down when you could have left me to die, she said. You faced 5 armed men rather than give me up. You told me about your wife, about your pain. She squeezed his hand once, then let go. Trust isn't given, Caleb. It's earned. And you've earned a start. A start's all I'm asking for. She nodded. Then she stood, swaying slightly. I need to rest. Tomorrow we plan. Tonight we sleep. Take the bed. I'll keep watch. You need sleep too. I'll sleep when we're safe. We may never be safe again. Then I'll sleep when I'm dead. She laughed at that, a real laugh, small but genuine. The first sign of light he'd seen in her since he'd cut her down. You're a strange man, Caleb Thornton. So I've been told. She walked toward the bedroom, then stopped at the door. Caleb? Yeah. Thank you for the start. She closed the door behind her. Caleb sat alone in the main room, rifle across his knees, watching the door. Outside, the wind picked up. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled. He thought about what was coming. Harlan's men, the gold, the war that was about to begin. He thought about Winona, her strength, her pain, her stubborn refusal to break. He thought about Margaret buried on the hillside and what she would say if she could see him now. You found your reason, Cal. Don't waste it. He must have dozed because the sound of the door opening snapped him awake instantly. His hand was on the rifle before he was fully conscious. It's me. Winona's voice. Calm. But something in it made him tense. She walked into the main room, moving better now than she had before. Rest had helped. But her eyes were sharp, focused on something outside. What is it? Caleb asked. Someone's watching the cabin. He was on his feet immediately. Where? East side, in the tree line. I saw movement through the window. Could be an animal. It's not an animal. She moved to the window, staying to the side out of sight. There. See it. Caleb looked. At first, nothing. Then there. A shadow that didn't move like the others. The shape of a man crouched in the brush. Jennings left a watcher, he said. To track our movements. Report back. Or to make sure we don't run. Winona's jaw tightened. What do we do? Caleb thought. One watcher meant they were still in the planning phase. Harlan wanted information before he struck. That was good. It gave them time. But it also meant they couldn't leave without being followed. Can you handle a gun? He asked. I can handle a bow better. We don't have a bow. Then teach me the gun. He looked at her. In the dim light from the dying fire, her face was all sharp angles and determination. You sure about this? He asked. Once we start down this road, there's no going back. There's nothing to go back to. Her voice was steady. My people are dead. My home is ash. The only way is forward. Forward into a fight we might not win. Then we die trying. She met his eyes. I've made my peace with death, Caleb. Have you? He thought about it, really thought about it. Yeah, he said finally. I reckon I have. Good. She turned back to the window. Then let's give them something to watch. They spent the next hour preparing. Caleb showed Winona the basics of the rifle, how to load it, aim it, fire it. She was a quick study. Her hands were steady, her eye was sharp, and she didn't flinch at the recoil. You've done this before, he said. My husband taught me, before he died. He taught you well. She didn't answer. But something in her expression softened just for a moment. They barricaded the windows, moved furniture to create cover. Caleb showed her the cellar entrance, the tunnel, the escape route. If things go bad, he said, you take that tunnel and you don't look back. And leave you to die alone, no. Winona. No. She cut him off. I've watched enough people die. I'm not adding you to the list. I'm not worth dying for. That's not your decision to make. She finished loading the rifle and set it aside. We fight together or we don't fight at all. Those are the terms. Caleb looked at her for a long moment. This woman, who had lost everything, who had been beaten and tortured and left for dead, who should by all rights be broken beyond repair. But she wasn't broken. She was bent maybe, battered, but not broken. All right, he said. Together. Together. They shook on it. Her grip was firm. Dawn came slow and gray. The watcher in the trees had disappeared sometime in the night, gone to report probably. Which meant they had maybe a day before Harlan's men came back. Maybe less. Caleb made breakfast. Coffee and eggs and the last of the bread. They ate in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Winona spoke. Tell me about the town. Elkhorn Crossing. Are there good people there? Some. Most are too scared of Harlan to do anything. And the law? Sheriff's in Harlan's pocket. Has been for years. So there's no one who would help us. Caleb thought about it. There's a woman, Maggie Holloway, runs the boarding house. Lost her husband to Harlan's men 3 years back. She's got no love for the judge. Would she hide us? Maybe. She's got guts, I'll give her that. But she's also got sense. She won't do anything that'll get her killed. What about the federal marshal? Benton. He's worse than the sheriff. Takes Harlan's money and looks the other way. Winona nodded slowly. So we're alone. We're alone. She was quiet for a moment. Then she stood and walked to the window, looking out at the gray morning. There's something else I haven't told you, she said. What's that? The gold in the valley. It's not just gold. She turned to face him. There are papers there too, documents. My grandfather kept records of every treaty, every agreement, every broken promise, proof that the land belongs to my people, legal proof. Caleb's heart beat faster. That could change everything. If we can get it to the right people, someone in Washington who isn't in Harlan's pocket. You know anyone like that? No. She smiled grimly. But I know someone who might. A missionary who used to visit our camp, Father Donnelly. He has connections in the East, people who care about justice. Where is he now? Fort Laramie. 3 days' ride. Caleb stood up. His mind was racing. This was bigger than he'd thought. Not just survival, but actual justice. A chance to bring Harlan down. Really bring him down. We'll need horses, he said. Supplies. A plan to get past Harlan's men. I can help with the plan. I know this land better than any white man. I don't doubt it. But first, she hesitated. First, there's something I need to do. What? Her eyes went dark. My people. Their bodies. Harlan's men left them to rot. I need to go back. I need to... She swallowed. I need to say goodbye. Caleb understood. The need to honor the dead. The need for closure. "It's too dangerous," he said. "Harlan will have men watching that area." "I know, but I have to try." "Then we go together." She shook her head. "You don't have to." "Together," he said firmly. That was the deal. She looked at him for a long moment, and for the first time since he'd found her, something in her expression changed. The wariness faded. The guard came down. Just a little. Just enough. "You're a good man, Caleb Thornton," she said quietly. "Don't tell anyone. I've got a reputation to maintain." She laughed. That small, genuine laugh again. And despite everything, the danger, the fear, the impossible odds, Caleb felt something shift in his chest. Something that felt dangerously like hope. They were packing supplies when they heard the sound. Hoofbeats. Lots of them. Coming fast. Caleb grabbed the rifle and ran to the window. His blood went cold. Not 5 riders this time. Not 10. 20. At least 20. Coming down the main road in a cloud of dust and torchlight. And at the front of them, mounted on a black horse, was a man Caleb recognized from newspaper sketches and whispered stories. Judge Marcus Harlan himself. "Winona," Caleb said, his voice tight. "Get to the cellar." She appeared beside him, looked out the window and went pale. He came himself. "Seems we made an impression." "Caleb, there's too many. We can't." "Get to the cellar, take the tunnel. Get to Maggie's place in town. She'll hide you." "I won't leave you." "You don't have a choice." He grabbed her shoulders, looked into her eyes. "Listen to me. You're the one with the knowledge, the gold, the papers. You're the one who can bring Harlan down. I'm just a rancher with a rifle. But you matter. You understand." Tears welled in her eyes. "This is suicide." "Maybe, but it's my choice." He pressed something into her hand. A small leather pouch. "That's everything I've got saved. It's not much, but it'll get you to Fort Laramie. Find Father Donnelly. Tell him everything." "Caleb, go, now." The hoofbeats were getting closer. Shouts echoed across the yard. Winona grabbed his face with both hands and pulled him down. For one heartbeat, he thought she was going to kiss him. Instead, she pressed her forehead to his. "You stay alive, Caleb Thornton," she whispered fiercely. "You stay alive, and I'll come back for you. I swear it." Then she was gone, disappearing through the hatch into the cellar, into the darkness. Caleb closed the hatch, covered it with the rug, pushed the table over it for good measure. Then he walked to the front door, opened it, and stepped out onto the porch. 20 men, 20 guns. One judge with murder in his eyes. Caleb Thornton raised his rifle. "Morning, gentlemen," he said. "Who's first?" Judge Marcus Harlan raised his hand, and the riders stopped. 20 men, 20 guns. All pointed at one rancher standing on a wooden porch with nothing but a rifle and a death wish. Harlan dismounted slowly. He was older than Caleb had expected, 60, maybe 65, with silver hair and a face like carved granite. He wore a black coat despite the heat, and when he smiled, it didn't touch his eyes. "Caleb Thornton," Harlan said. His voice was soft, cultured. The voice of a man who never had to raise it because people listened anyway. "I've heard about you. Cavalry scout. Kept to yourself for years. Never caused any trouble. Still don't intend to. And yet." Harlan spread his hands. "Here we are. You killed 3 of my men yesterday, threatened 5 more last night, and now you're pointing a rifle at me." "They were trespassing. They were doing their jobs." Harlan took a step closer. His men shifted fingers, tightening on triggers. "I'm a reasonable man, Mr. Thornton. I don't want bloodshed. All I want is what belongs to me. Nothing here belongs to you. The Apache woman does." Harlan's smile widened. "She killed one of my employees. She has information I need. And she's hiding somewhere on your property. Give her to me and this all goes away. You go back to your quiet life. No charges, no consequences. Just hand her over. Caleb's grip tightened on the rifle. Under the cabin floor, hidden by rug and table, was a hatch that led to a cellar that led to a tunnel. Winona was in that tunnel now, crawling toward freedom. Every second he kept Harlan talking was another second she got further away. "Don't know any Apache woman," Caleb said. "Please." Harlan sighed like a disappointed father. "The blood trail leads here. The tracks lead here. My man Jennings watched your cabin all night. We know she's inside. Then come and get her." Harlan studied him for a long moment. Something flickered in those cold eyes, not anger exactly, more like curiosity, like he was examining an interesting insect before crushing it. "You'd die for her," Harlan said. "A woman you just met. A savage." "She ain't a savage, and yeah, I would." "Why?" Caleb thought about it. Thought about Margaret. About 8 years of emptiness. About a woman hanging from a tree who refused to break. "Because some things are worth dying for," he said. "You wouldn't understand." Harlan laughed. A genuine laugh which somehow made it worse. "You're right," he said. "I wouldn't. I've never understood men like you. Men who throw their lives away for principles, for strangers, for causes that don't benefit them." He shook his head. "It's inefficient." "Maybe, but it lets me sleep at night." "Sleep." Harlan's smile faded. "You won't be sleeping much longer, Mr. Thornton. I'm going to give you one last chance. Where is the woman?" Caleb raised the rifle. "Go to hell." Harlan sighed again. Then he nodded. The first bullet hit Caleb in the shoulder. The second hit him in the leg. He went down hard, the rifle clattering away, and before he could move, 3 men were on him. Boots slammed into his ribs. Fists crashed into his face. He tasted blood, heard bone crack. The world spun and blurred and went red at the edges. "Don't kill him." Harlan's voice came from somewhere far away. "Not yet. Search the cabin. Find the woman." Caleb tried to speak, tried to warn them away from the hatch, but his mouth was full of blood and his vision was going dark, and all he could do was pray that Winona was far enough away. Pray that she'd made it. Pray that she'd keep going. The darkness took him. The tunnel was narrow and dark and seemed to go on forever. Winona crawled through it on hands and knees, ignoring the pain in her ribs and the blood seeping through her bandages. Behind her, she could hear gunshots, shouting, the sound of violence. Caleb. She wanted to go back. Every instinct screamed at her to turn around to fight to die beside the man who had saved her life. But his words echoed in her head. "You're the one who can bring Harlan down. You matter." So she kept crawling. Through the darkness, through the pain, through the guilt that clawed at her chest like a living thing. The tunnel ended at a wooden hatch covered with brush. Winona pushed it open and pulled herself out into the gray morning light. She was maybe 50 yards from the barn, hidden behind a low ridge. She could see the cabin from here. Could see the riders surrounding it. Could see. Her heart stopped. Caleb was on the ground. Men were kicking him, beating him. And he wasn't fighting back. Winona's hand went to the knife at her belt. The knife that had killed one man already. She could go back, could try to help, could die. And then Caleb's sacrifice would mean nothing. She forced herself to look away, forced herself to move, to run hunched low toward the tree line, toward Elkhorn Crossing, toward the one person Caleb had said might help, Maggie Holloway. She ran until her lungs burned, until her legs gave out, until she collapsed behind a fallen log and had to fight just to breathe. And then she got up and ran some more. The town appeared through the trees just as the sun cleared the horizon. Elkhorn Crossing, a main street of wooden buildings, a church with a crooked steeple, a general store, a saloon, and there at the far end, a 2-story building with a sign that read, Holloway's Boarding House. Winona stuck to the shadows. She was a Lakota woman in a white man's town covered in blood and bruises. If anyone saw her, they'd call for the sheriff. And the sheriff worked for Harlan. She made it to the back of the boarding house without being spotted, found a door, knocked, nothing. She knocked again, harder. "Go away!" A woman's voice, sharp, afraid. "We're closed. Please." Winona pressed her forehead against the door. "Caleb Thornton sent me. Please, I have nowhere else to go." Silence. Then the sound of a lock turning. The door opened a crack, and a woman peered out. 50 maybe. Red hair going gray. Hard eyes that had seen too much. "Caleb sent you." "Yes. He said you might help me. He said you lost someone to Harlan, too." The woman's eyes went wide. She looked past Winona, scanning the alley, then grabbed her arm and pulled her inside. "Are you insane?" the woman hissed. "Coming here in broad daylight. I had no choice. Harlan's men, they have Caleb. They were beating him. I don't know if he's—" Winona's voice broke. "I don't know if he's alive." The woman Maggie, it had to be. Maggie studied her for a long moment. Then something in her expression softened. "Come with me, quickly." She led Winona through a kitchen, up a narrow staircase, and into a small room at the back of the building. There was a bed, a wash basin, and a window that looked out on the alley. "Stay here," Maggie said. "Don't make a sound. Don't go near the window. I'll find out what happened to Caleb." "How?" "I have my ways." Maggie paused at the door. "What's your name?" "Winona." "Winona." Maggie nodded slowly. "My husband's name was Thomas. He stood up to Harlan 3 years ago, said he wouldn't sell our land to make way for the railroad. They found him hanging from a tree the next morning, called it suicide." Her voice hardened. "It wasn't suicide." "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. Be angry." Maggie opened the door. "I'll be back in an hour. Try to rest." She was gone before Winona could respond. Winona sat on the bed. Her hands were shaking. Her whole body was shaking. She thought about Caleb, his rough voice, his gentle hands, the way he'd looked at her like she was something worth saving. She thought about her grandmother, her cousin, her people. She thought about revenge. Then she lay down on the bed and closed her eyes and tried not to dream about fire. Maggie returned 2 hours later. Her face was grim. "He's alive," she said. Winona sat up so fast her vision blurred. "Where is he?" "Harlan's men took him into town. He's in the jail." Maggie sat down on the edge of the bed. "They're saying he killed 3 deputies. That's a hanging offense." "He was defending himself. They attacked him first. Doesn't matter what really happened. Matters what Harlan says happened. And Harlan says Caleb Thornton is a murderer." Maggie shook her head. "The trial's set for tomorrow morning. Judge Harlan himself will preside." "Harlan can't be the judge. He's the one who—" "Welcome to Elkhorn Crossing." Maggie's voice was bitter. "Harlan is the law here. The judge, the jury, the executioner. Has been for 10 years. She paused. "They're going to hang him, Winona. Tomorrow at noon, unless someone stops them." Winona stood up. Her injuries screamed at her, but she ignored them. "Then we stop them. How? It's just you and me against an army. I don't care. I'm not letting him die for me." Maggie studied her for a long moment. Something shifted in her expression, the hardness giving way to something else. Respect, maybe, or recognition. "You love him," Maggie said. "I barely know him." "Sometimes that's all it takes." Maggie stood up. "All right, if we're going to do this, we need a plan, and we need help." Caleb said no one in this town would stand against Harlan. "Caleb's been living alone too long. He doesn't know everything." Maggie walked to the window. "There are people in this town who hate Harlan. People who've lost family, lost land, lost hope. They're scared, yes. But fear can turn to anger, and anger can turn to action. How do we reach them? One at a time." Maggie turned back to face her. But first, we need to reach someone who can help us in the jail. Someone close to Caleb. Someone who owes him. Who? Deputy Samuel Cole, young man, idealistic. Harlan thinks he owns him, but Sam's got a conscience. And 3 years ago, when Sam's mother was dying, Caleb rode 20 miles in a blizzard to fetch the doctor. She lived. Maggie smiled grimly. Sam owes Caleb his mother's life. Time to collect. She led Winona back downstairs and into a small office behind the kitchen. There was a desk, some papers, a safe in the corner. I need to know everything, Maggie said. Everything Harlan wants. Everything you know. If we're going to fight him, we need ammunition. Winona took a deep breath. Then she told Maggie everything. About the massacre at Crow Creek. About the gold in the hidden valley. About the papers her grandfather had kept. About Harlan's plan to control the railroad route. When she finished, Maggie was silent for a long moment. My God, she said finally, this is bigger than I thought. Will you still help me? Maggie looked at her. In her eyes was something fierce and dangerous, the look of a woman who had nothing left to lose. Help you. Maggie laughed. Honey, I've been waiting 3 years for a chance to bring that bastard down. You just gave me the ammunition I needed. She pulled a shawl over her shoulders. Stay here. Stay hidden. I'm going to find Sam Cole. And then we're going to start a revolution. She was gone before Winona could respond. Alone in the quiet room, Winona closed her eyes and tried to feel something other than fear. She thought about Caleb in that jail cell. Beaten. Broken. Waiting to die. Hold on, she thought. I'm coming for you. I swear it. The jail was a small building at the edge of town, built of stone and iron. 2 cells, 1 window, 1 door. Caleb sat in the corner of the first cell, his back against the wall, his body a map of pain. His shoulder was bandaged. Someone had dug the bullet out roughly, but his ribs were cracked, and his face was swollen, and every breath felt like fire. He was going to die tomorrow. The thought should have scared him. Instead, it felt almost peaceful. He'd made his choice. He'd bought Winona time. Whatever happened next was out of his hands. The cell door opened. Caleb looked up. A young man stood in the doorway, 25 maybe, with nervous eyes and a deputy's badge. Samuel Cole. Caleb recognized him. Mr. Thornton. Sam's voice was barely above a whisper. Are you awake? I'm awake. Sam glanced over his shoulder, then stepped into the cell and closed the door behind him. I don't have much time, he said. The sheriff's making rounds in 10 minutes. But I had to come. I had to tell you. Tell me what? There's people gathering at the boarding house. Mrs. Holloway's been talking to folks all day, telling them about what Harlan's really doing, about the massacre, about the gold. Sam swallowed. There's talk of fighting back Mr. Thornton. Real talk, for the first time in years. Caleb's heart beat faster. How many people? 12 last I heard, maybe more by morning. That's not enough. Harlan has 20 men. I know, but it's a start. Sam pulled something from his pocket. A small key. This is the key to the back door. I'm going to leave it under the water bucket in the corner. Tomorrow morning during the trial, there's going to be a distraction. When you hear shots, you run. You understand? Caleb stared at the young deputy. Why are you doing this? Because you saved my mother's life. Because what Harlan's doing is wrong. Because... Sam's voice cracked. Because I'm tired of being afraid. I'm tired of looking the other way while innocent people die. You'll hang for this, if they catch you. Then they better not catch me. Sam placed the key under the bucket. Mrs. Holloway said to tell you something. She said the Lakota woman is safe. She's waiting for you. And she said... He paused, a small smile crossing his face. She said you better not die because she's not done with you yet. Caleb felt something crack open in his chest. Something that had been sealed for 8 years. Tell her. His voice was rough. "Tell her I'm hard to kill." "I'll tell her." Sam moved toward the door. "Tomorrow, Mr. Thornton. Be ready." Then he was gone. Caleb sat in the darkness, his broken body screaming in pain, his mind racing. 12 people. A key. A distraction. It wasn't much, but it was hope. And hope, he was learning, could be the most dangerous weapon of all. The night passed slowly. Winona didn't sleep. She sat by the window watching the street, counting the hours until dawn. Maggie came and went, bringing news in fragments. Sam Cole was on their side. 12 people had agreed to fight. More were considering. The distraction was planned a fire in the stables at the edge of town. When Harlan's men rushed to put it out, Caleb would escape. It was a fragile plan, a desperate plan, but it was all they had. Just before dawn, there was a knock at Winona's door. She opened it to find Maggie standing there with a bundle in her arms. "Put these on," Maggie said, handing her the bundle. "You can't go out there looking like that." Winona unfolded the bundle. A simple dress, a bonnet, white woman's clothes. "I don't understand." "You're going to be in the crowd tomorrow, watching the trial. And when the distraction happens, you're going to help Caleb get out of town." Maggie's eyes were hard. "Can you ride?" "Yes." "Good. There'll be 2 horses waiting behind the livery stable. You take them and you ride. Don't stop until you reach Fort Laramie. Find Father Donnelly. Tell him everything." She paused. "And take this." She pressed something into Winona's hand. A pistol. Small, silver, deadly. "Do you know how to use it?" "Caleb taught me." "Then use it if you have to." Maggie gripped her shoulders. "Listen to me. What happens tomorrow, it's bigger than you and Caleb. It's about everyone Harlan has hurt. Everyone he's killed. If you make it to Fort Laramie, if you get those papers to the right people, you can bring him down. You can give all of us justice." "What about you?" "I'll be fine. I've survived this long." Maggie smiled, but her eyes were sad. "You just make sure Caleb survives too. That man's been dead inside for too long. You brought him back to life. Don't let him throw it away." Winona nodded. Her throat was too tight to speak. "Get some rest," Maggie said. "Tomorrow's going to be a long day." She left. Winona stood alone in the small room, holding the pistol, wearing the dress of a white woman, preparing to fight for a man she barely knew. A man she couldn't stop thinking about. A man she refused to let die. The sun rose red over Elkhorn Crossing. Blood red. Winona dressed carefully, tucking the pistol into the folds of her dress, pulling the bonnet low over her face. In the mirror, she barely recognized herself. A Lakota woman in white woman's clothes, a warrior in disguise. She thought about her grandmother, about what she would say. "The Creator works in strange ways, child. Trust the path even when you cannot see where it leads." Winona took a deep breath. Then she walked out into the morning light. The town was already gathering. Word of the trial had spread, and people were streaming toward the courthouse, a large wooden building at the center of town. Some looked curious, some looked afraid, and some, Winona noticed, looked angry. 12 people, maybe more. She found a spot near the back of the crowd, close to the alley that led to the livery stable. From here she could see the courthouse steps, could see the makeshift gallows that had been erected overnight, could see the noose swaying gently in the morning breeze. Her stomach turned, the crowd murmured, the courthouse doors opened, and there he was. Caleb. They had cleaned him up some, but the damage was clear. His face was swollen. His left arm hung at a wrong angle. He walked with a limp, flanked by 2 armed guards, and every step seemed to cost him. But his head was up. His eyes were clear. And when he scanned the crowd, searching, his gaze found her. Just for a moment. Just long enough for her to see him nod. He knew she was there. He knew the plan was in motion. Winona's hand tightened around the pistol in her dress. Judge Harlan emerged from the courthouse, and the crowd fell silent. He was dressed in black, his silver hair gleaming in the morning sun, his face a mask of righteous authority. "Citizens of Elkhorn Crossing," he said, his voice carrying across the square. "We are gathered here to witness justice. Caleb Thornton stands accused of murdering 3 deputies of this territory. He has confessed to the crime." "I confess to nothing," Caleb said. His voice was rough but steady. "I defended my home against trespassers. That's not murder. That's the law." Harlan smiled. "The law is what I say it is, Mr. Thornton. And I say you're a murderer." He turned to the crowd. "The sentence is death by hanging, to be carried out immediately." A murmur ran through the crowd, some approving, some uncertain. And somewhere behind Winona, she heard a voice whisper, "Now." The fire started fast. One moment there was nothing. The next flames were shooting up from the stables at the edge of town, and someone was screaming, and chaos erupted. "Fire, fire in the stables." Harlan's men looked around in confusion. Harlan himself barked orders. Half the guards ran toward the flames. The other half tightened their grip on Caleb. But they weren't watching the crowd. They weren't watching the woman in the white dress. Winona moved. She pushed through the crowd, the pistol in her hand, her heart pounding. The guard saw her too late. She fired once. The shot caught the first guard in the shoulder. The second guard raised his gun, but Caleb was already moving, slamming his body into the man, taking them both to the ground. "Run!" Winona shouted. Caleb grabbed the fallen guard's gun and ran. Behind them, Harlan was screaming, "Stop them! Kill them!" But the crowd was in motion now. People pushing, shoving, blocking the guards. Not fighting, not yet, but not helping Harlan either. The 12, the angry ones, the ones who'd had enough. Winona and Caleb ran. Through the alley, past the boarding house, toward the livery stable. The horses were there, waiting, just like Maggie had promised. "Can you ride?" Winona asked. "I can ride." They mounted up. Behind them, gunshots rang out. Shouts echoed through the streets. "Hold on," Winona said. "And don't you dare die on me, Caleb Thornton." She kicked her horse into a gallop. Caleb followed, and they rode. They rode hard for an hour before Caleb's body finally gave out. Winona saw him swaying in the saddle, saw his grip loosening on the reins, and she pulled her horse alongside his, just in time to catch him before he fell. "Caleb, Caleb, stay with me." His eyes were glassy. His breathing was shallow. The wound in his shoulder had reopened, and blood was soaking through his bandage. "Need to stop," he managed. "Just for a minute." "We can't stop. They're following us." "Winona." He gripped her arm with surprising strength. I can't ride anymore. I'm sorry." She looked back. The road behind them was empty for now, but it wouldn't stay that way for long. Harlan would send men. Lots of them. She looked forward. Somewhere ahead was Fort Laramie. Safety. Justice. And in front of her was a man who had saved her life, who was dying because of it. She made her choice. "There's a canyon," she said. "Half a mile east. Caves there. We can hide. Rest. I can treat your wounds. You know this land." "I told you I did." She guided their horses off the main road into the brush. "Now shut up and hold on." The canyon was where she remembered it. Hidden, protected, a place her people had used for generations. She helped Caleb off his horse, half carrying him into the largest cave. Laid him down on the stone floor. Started assessing his wounds. It was bad. Worse than she'd thought. The shoulder wound was infected. His ribs were definitely broken. And he'd lost too much blood. "You need a doctor," she said. "Fresh out of doctors." He tried to smile. It came out as a grimace. "Just do what you can." Winona's hands moved automatically, drawing on everything her grandmother had taught her. She cleaned the wound with water from her canteen, applied pressure to stop the bleeding, tore strips from her dress to make bandages. "This is going to hurt," she warned. "Everything hurts. What's a little more?" She worked quickly, efficiently, her grandmother's voice in her head guiding her. Caleb didn't scream, but his jaw was clenched so tight she thought his teeth might crack. When she finished, his breathing was easier. The bleeding had stopped. He wasn't out of danger, but he wasn't dying either. "You saved my life," he said quietly. "Again. You saved mine first. That's not—" He coughed, wincing. "That's not how I remember it." "Then your memory's bad." She sat back, exhausted. "You need to rest. Sleep if you can." "What about Harlan's men?" "I'll keep watch." "Winona?" "Sleep, Caleb." She touched his face gently. "I'll be here when you wake up." He looked at her for a long moment. Something passed between them, something that didn't need words. Then his eyes closed. Winona sat in the darkness of the cave, listening to him breathe, watching the entrance for signs of pursuit. She thought about everything that had happened. The massacre, the escape, the rescue, the fire. She thought about the road ahead. Fort Laramie, Father Donnelly, justice. And she thought about the man lying beside her. The broken rancher who had found her hanging from a tree. Who had faced 20 men rather than give her up. Who was dying slowly because he'd chosen to save a stranger. Not a stranger anymore. Something had changed between them. Something real. Something that scared her almost as much as Harlan did. But she didn't run from it. She sat in the darkness, and she waited, and she hoped. And somewhere in the distance, she heard the sound of hoofbeats. Getting closer. The hoofbeats stopped. Winona held her breath, her hand closing around the pistol Maggie had given her. Beside her, Caleb stirred, his eyes opening, instantly alert despite his injuries. "How many?" he whispered. "I don't know." "Stay down." She crept toward the mouth of the cave, pressing herself against the cold stone. Outside, she could hear voices, men's voices. 2, maybe 3. "Tracks lead this way." "Could be anywhere in these rocks." "Spread out. Check every hole." Winona's heart pounded. The cave went back maybe 20 feet. There was no other exit. If they found the entrance, she and Caleb were trapped. She felt Caleb move behind her, turned to see him pushing himself up, reaching for the gun at his hip. "What are you doing?" she hissed. "What needs to be done?" "You can barely stand." "I can stand enough." He limped toward her, every step costing him. "How many rounds you got him?" 4. "You." 6. "Why?" He positioned himself beside her, his shoulder against the cave wall. 10 bullets, 3 men. Those are better odds than yesterday." "You're insane." "Probably." He looked at her, and despite everything, the pain, the fear, the impossible situation, he smiled. "You regretting saving me yet?" "Ask me again in 5 minutes." A shadow fell across the cave entrance. Winona fired. The first man went down with a cry. The second dove for cover, returning fire. Bullets ricocheted off the cave walls, sparks flying. Caleb pushed Winona behind him and fired twice, 3 times. Another cry. Another body falling. Then silence. "The third one," Caleb said. "Where's the third one?" Winona listened. Nothing. No footsteps. No breathing. Just the wind. Maybe he ran. Maybe. Caleb didn't sound convinced. Or maybe he's... The shot came from above, a hidden position on the ridge. It caught Caleb in the side, spinning him around. He dropped. "Caleb." Winona fired upward, emptying her pistol at the ridge. She didn't hit anything, but it bought her time. She grabbed Caleb and dragged him deeper into the cave, her muscles screaming, her lungs burning. "I'm okay," Caleb gasped. "I'm okay, it's just a graze." It wasn't just a graze. Blood was spreading across his shirt, dark and fast. "Stop talking." Winona pressed her hands against the wound. "Stop moving. Just breathe. You need to go." "Shut up." "Winona, listen to me." He grabbed her wrist, his grip weak but insistent. "That third man, he'll go for help. He'll bring more. You need to go now. Take the horses. Get to Fort Laramie." "I'm not leaving you." "You have to." "I said no." "The papers, the gold, Everything we've been fighting for, it means nothing if you die here." His voice was fading. His eyes were losing focus. "Please, for me, go." Winona looked at him, at this broken, stubborn, impossible man who had found her hanging from a tree and decided to fight the world for her. She thought about her grandmother, her people, the justice they deserved, and she thought about leaving Caleb Thornton to die alone in a cave. "I'll come back for you," she said. "I swear it." "I know you will." He smiled, blood on his teeth. "I'll be waiting." She kissed him. Fast, hard. A promise and a goodbye, and something else she didn't have words for. Then she ran. The third man was gone, just like Caleb had said. The horses were still there, hidden in the brush. Winona mounted and rode, pushing the animal as fast as it would go. Behind her, the canyon grew smaller and smaller. She didn't look back. She couldn't. The ride to Fort Laramie took 2 days. 2 days of hard riding, hiding in ditches, when she heard hoofbeats sleeping in short snatches that left her more tired than before. Her body screamed for rest. Her mind screamed for Caleb. But she kept going. Because that was what he had asked her to do. Because that was the only way to save him. She reached the fort at sunset on the second day. It was larger than she expected, a proper military installation, with wooden walls and armed soldiers, and an American flag flying overhead. White men's territory. Dangerous for a Lakota woman traveling alone. But she didn't have a choice. She found the church on the edge of the fort, a small wooden building with a cross on top. She tied her horse and walked inside. A man was kneeling at the altar, older, gray-haired, wearing the black robes of a priest. "Father Donnelly." He turned. His eyes widened when he saw her. The torn dress, the dried blood, the desperate look on her face. "My child, what happened to you?" "My name is Winona. I come from the camp at Crow Creek. Judge Marcus Harlan murdered my people, all of them, and now he's going to murder the man who saved me if I don't stop him." Father Donnelly rose slowly. His face was pale. "Crow Creek," he repeated. "I heard rumors, but I thought, I hoped—" "It's not rumors, it's truth, and I have proof." Winona reached into her dress and pulled out the leather pouch she'd carried from Caleb's cabin. The documents her grandfather had kept, the treaties, the agreements, the records. "Everything is here. Everything Harlan has done. Everything he's planning to do." The priest took the pouch with trembling hands. He opened it. Red. His face went from pale to gray. "Dear God," he whispered. This is enough to bring him down. More than enough." He looked at her. "But Harlan has powerful friends. Judges, politicians, even some military officers. Getting this to the right people will take time." "I don't have time. The man who saved me, Caleb Thornton, he's dying in a canyon 2 days' ride from here. Harlan's men are hunting him. If I don't get back—" "You can't go back alone. That's suicide." "Then help me. You must know soldiers here. Good men. Men who aren't in Harlan's pocket." Father Donnelly was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "There's a captain, Samuel Morrison. He's been investigating Harlan for months, but he never had enough evidence." The priest held up the pouch. "This might be what he needs. Take me to him. First you need rest, food, medical attention. I need to save Caleb. You won't save anyone if you collapse from exhaustion." Father Donnelly took her arm gently. "Come with me. I'll send word to Captain Morrison tonight. By morning we'll have a plan." Winona wanted to argue, wanted to run back out into the night and ride until she reached Caleb or died trying. But she knew the priest was right. She let him lead her to a small room behind the church, ate the food he brought, let him treat her wounds, and when sleep finally claimed her, she dreamed of a broken rancher with gentle hands and a stubborn heart. "Hold on," she thought. I'm coming. Captain Samuel Morrison was a hard man with honest eyes. He listened to Winona's story without interrupting. read the documents Father Donnelly had given him, and when he finished, his jaw was tight with barely contained fury. "I knew Harlan was corrupt," he said. "But this massacring civilians, stealing land, perverting the law, this is beyond anything I imagined." "Will you help?" Winona asked. "I'll do more than help." Morrison stood. "I have 20 men under my command. Good men. Men who joined the army to protect people, not serve criminals." He looked at her. "But I need to know something first. This man, Caleb Thornton, he's important to you." Winona thought about the question. About what Caleb meant to her. About what he had sacrificed. "He saved my life," she said. "He's the only reason I'm standing here. And if he dies because I wasn't fast enough." Her voice broke. Morrison nodded slowly. "We ride at dawn. With any luck, we'll reach that canyon before Harlan's men do. And if we don't?" The captain didn't answer. He didn't have to. They rode hard. 20 soldiers, 1 priest and a Lakota woman who refused to rest. They pushed the horses to their limits, stopped only when absolutely necessary, and rode through the night by torchlight. Winona led the way. She knew this land. Every ridge, every valley, every shortcut that could save them precious hours. But the fear never left her, the cold certainty that she was already too late, that Caleb was already dead, that she would find nothing in that canyon but blood and silence. She pushed the thoughts away, focused on the ride, on the mission, on hope. They reached the canyon at midday on the second day. The sun was high, the air was hot, and from a mile away, Winona could see the horses, Harlan's horses, dozens of them. "They found him," she said. Morrison raised his hand, signaling his men to slow. "We don't know that. They might be searching. He might still be alive. And if he's not?" The captain looked at her. His eyes were kind but honest. "Then we avenge him." Winona nodded. Her hand tightened on the reins. "Either way," she said, "Harlan dies today." They approached carefully, using the ridges for cover. As they got closer, Winona could hear voices. Shouting. The sound of men arguing. And then, impossibly, she heard a sound that made her heart stop. Gunfire. From inside the canyon. "He's alive," she whispered. "He's fighting." Morrison didn't hesitate. Forward. All men forward. The soldiers charged. Winona rode with them, the pistol in her hand, her heart pounding. The scene in the canyon was chaos. Harlan's men were scattered among the rocks, taking cover from gunfire coming from the cave. And there, at the mouth of the cave, half hidden behind a boulder, was Caleb Thornton. Bloody, broken, and still fighting. He'd gathered the weapons from the men Winona had killed. 2 pistols, a rifle, and he was using them all, firing methodically, making every bullet count. But he was surrounded, outnumbered, running out of ammunition, until the cavalry arrived. Morrison's men hit Harlan's forces from behind. The canyon echoed with gunfire, with shouts, with the sounds of battle. Winona rode through it all, straight toward the cave, straight toward Caleb. She reached him just as his last bullet found its target. He lowered the rifle and looked up at her. "You came back," he said. "I told you I would." "Thought I might be dead by now." "Not today." She dismounted and crouched beside him. "Are you okay? Can you move?" "Define okay." She laughed. It came out as a sob. Around them, the battle was ending. Morrison's men had the advantage of surprise, and Harlan's hired guns were falling fast. Those who weren't killed were surrendering, throwing down their weapons, putting up their hands. And there in the middle of it all, Winona saw him. Judge Marcus Harlan. He was mounted on his black horse, trying to escape through the far end of the canyon. But Morrison's men had cut off the exit. He was trapped. Winona stood. "Where are you going?" Caleb asked. "To finish this." She walked across the canyon floor, stepping over bodies, ignoring the chaos around her. Harlan saw her coming. He reached for his gun, but she was faster. She raised her pistol and aimed it at his chest. "Get off the horse," she said. Harlan's eyes were wild. Desperate. the look of a man who had never faced real consequences and didn't know how to handle them. "You're making a mistake," he said. "I have powerful friends. I can have you killed with a word. I can—" "Get off the horse." He dismounted slowly. His hands were shaking. "Please," he said. "I'll give you whatever you want. Gold, land. I'll leave you alone. I'll leave everyone alone. Just let me go." Winona thought about her grandmother, about her cousin, about 37 people who had been murdered because a powerful man wanted their land. She thought about mercy, and she thought about justice. "Do you remember them?" she asked quietly. "The people you killed at Crow Creek. Do you remember their faces? They were savages. They were in the way. They were my family." Harlan's mouth opened, closed. For the first time, real fear crossed his face. "You're going to stand trial," Winona said. "You're going to face justice. Real justice, not the kind you bought and sold. And when they hang you for what you've done, I'm going to be there, watching, remembering." She lowered the pistol. "Take him," she said to Captain Morrison. "He's yours now." The captain nodded. Two soldiers grabbed Harlan, binding his hands, leading him away, and Winona turned and walked back to Caleb. He was standing now, leaning against the boulder, watching her with something like awe in his eyes. "You could have killed him," he said. "I know." "Why didn't you—" Winona thought about it, about the rage that still burned inside her, about the grief that would never fully heal. "Because killing him wouldn't bring them back," she said, "and because I want him to suffer. I want him to know what it's like to be powerless, to be at someone else's mercy, to have everything taken from him." She paused. "Is that wrong?" "No." Caleb touched her face gently. "I think that's human." They stood there for a moment, in the middle of the canyon, surrounded by soldiers and bodies and the wreckage of a battle. Then Caleb's knees buckled. Winona caught him before he hit the ground. "You need a doctor," she said. "What I need," he said, "is to stop getting shot." "That too." She helped him to a horse. Captain Morrison was already organizing his men, preparing to transport the prisoners back to Fort Laramie. Father Donnelly was tending to the wounded, and Harlan was bound and beaten, watching it all with dead eyes. "It's over," Caleb said quietly. "It's really over." "Not quite." Winona looked toward the east, toward Crow Creek, toward the hidden valley where her grandfather's gold still waited. "There's something I need to do first." "What?" "Say goodbye." Caleb was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. "I'll come with you. You need rest, medical care." "I've needed that for 3 days. Another few hours won't kill me." He took her hand. "You shouldn't have to say goodbye alone." Winona looked at him, at this stubborn, broken, beautiful man who had found her at the worst moment of her life and refused to let go. "Okay," she said. "Together." They rode. The site of the massacre was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that comes after great violence when even the wind is afraid to move. Winona dismounted slowly. Her legs were unsteady. Her heart was in her throat. The bodies were gone. Harlan's men must have buried them or burned them, but she could still see the signs of what had happened. The scorched earth, the broken lodge poles, the dark stains on the ground that no amount of rain would ever wash away. Caleb stayed back, giving her space, but he was there. She could feel his presence like a warmth against her spine. She walked to where her grandmother's lodge had stood, knelt in the ashes, closed her eyes. For a long time she didn't speak. She just breathed, just remembered, just let the grief wash through her like a river. Then she began to sing. It was a death song, an old song. Her grandmother had taught it to her when she was just a girl, and she had sung it when her husband died, and now she sang it again for everyone she had lost. Her voice was rough, broken, but it carried through the silence like a prayer. When she finished, there were tears on her cheeks. She didn't wipe them away. Caleb was beside her. She hadn't heard him approach, but he was there, his hand on her shoulder, his presence solid and warm. "They would be proud of you," he said. "What you did, how you fought. They would be proud." "You think so?" "I know so." She stood slowly, looked around at the ruins of her home, at the graves of her people. "I'll rebuild," she said. "Someday, when Harlan is dead and the land is safe, I'll come back here and I'll rebuild." "Not alone." She looked at him. "Not alone," he repeated. "If you'll have me." Winona stared at him for a long moment. This man who had been broken by loss, who had saved her life, who had nearly died for her more times than she could count. "You'd give up your ranch?" she asked. "Your life for me." That ranch was never really living. It was just waiting to die. He took her hands. "You taught me that. You reminded me what it's like to have something worth fighting for, something worth living for." "Caleb, I love you." The words came out rough, unpracticed, like he hadn't said them in a very long time. "I know it's crazy. I know we barely know each other. But I love you. And if you'll let me, I want to spend whatever time I have left proving it." Winona's heart was pounding. Her eyes were blurring with new tears. She thought about her husband, about the love she had lost, about the years she had spent convinced that she would never feel that way again. She thought about Caleb Thornton, about his rough hands and gentle eyes and stubborn, impossible heart. "Yes," she said. "Yes. Yes, you can stay with me. Yes, I'll let you prove it. Yes to all of it." She kissed him, soft, slow, a promise. "But if you get shot again, I'm leaving you behind." He laughed, a real laugh, full and warm. "Fair enough," he said. "Fair enough." They stood together in the ashes of the old world, and somewhere in the distance, the sun was rising on the new one. The ride back to Fort Laramie took 3 days. 3 days of slow travel, careful riding, and watching Caleb fight to stay conscious in the saddle. The wounds were taking their toll. Every mile cost him. But every time Winona suggested stopping, he shook his head. "We finish this first," he said. "Then I rest." Captain Morrison had sent a rider ahead with news of Harlan's capture. By the time they reached the fort, word had spread. Soldiers lined the gates. Civilians gathered in clusters, whispering, pointing. And at the center of it all, bound in chains, was Judge Marcus Harlan. He didn't look like a powerful man anymore. His fine clothes were torn and dirty. His silver hair was matted with sweat and blood. And his eyes, those cold, calculating eyes, were empty. Broken. "Get him to the stockade," Morrison ordered. "Double guards. No visitors." As the soldiers led Harlan away, Winona felt something shift inside her. Not satisfaction. Not yet. But something close to it. Justice. "Come on," she said to Caleb. "You need a doctor." "I need a drink." "Doctor first, drink after." He didn't argue. That's how she knew he was hurting. The fort's surgeon was a gruff man named Patterson. He took one look at Caleb and started cursing. "How are you still standing?" he demanded. "You've got 3 bullet wounds, cracked ribs, and what looks like the early stages of infection. You should be dead." "Too stubborn to die," Caleb said. "Clearly." Patterson pointed to a cot. "Lie down. Don't move. And for God's sake, stop getting shot." That's what she said. Winona smiled despite herself. The surgery took 2 hours. Winona waited outside, pacing, unable to sit still. Father Donnelly found her there, his face drawn with concern. "He'll be all right," the priest said. "Patterson is the best surgeon west of the Mississippi." "I know." She kept pacing. "I know." "You love him." It wasn't a question. Winona stopped walking. "Yes," she said. I do. Good. Father Donnelly sat down on a wooden bench. He's a good man, broken like most of us, but good. I thought priests weren't supposed to encourage this. This, a Lakota woman and a white rancher. It's not exactly traditional. Father Donnelly smiled. The Creator doesn't care about tradition, my child. He cares about love, about kindness, about two people finding each other in the darkness and choosing to walk toward the light together. He paused. Your grandmother would approve, I think. Winona's throat tightened. You knew her. I visited your camp many times. She was a wise woman, strong, stubborn. His smile widened. You remind me of her. Before Winona could respond, the door opened. Patterson stepped out, wiping his hands on a bloody cloth. He's stable, the surgeon said. Lost a lot of blood, but the infection's under control. He needs rest. Weeks of it, not days. Can I see him? He's asking for you. Something about making sure you didn't run off. Winona pushed past him and into the surgery. Caleb was lying on the cot, pale and bandaged, but his eyes were open. When he saw her, he smiled. Still here, he said. Where else would I be? Anywhere safer than this. She sat on the edge of the cot and took his hand. Nowhere is safe without you. That's the fever talking. That's the truth. She squeezed his fingers. How do you feel? Like I've been shot 3 times, beaten half to death, and dragged across Wyoming. So about normal then. He laughed, then winced. Don't make me laugh. Hurts too much. Then stop saying funny things. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, she could hear the sounds of the fort soldiers drilling horses, whinnying the distant clang of a blacksmith's hammer. The trial, Caleb said finally. When is it? 3 days. Morrison wants to give time for witnesses to arrive from Elkhorn Crossing. Maggie, she's coming, with Sam Cole and some others. Winona paused. The whole town knows what happened, what Harlan did, what you did to stop him. I didn't stop anything. You did. We did. She brought his hand to her lips and kissed his knuckles. Together. Caleb's eyes softened. For a moment he looked younger, less broken. I meant what I said, he told her. Back at Crow Creek, about staying with you, about loving you. I know. I'm not good at this. At words, at feelings. I spent 8 years not feeling anything. And now, Caleb, now everything is too much, too fast, and I don't know how to. Caleb. She leaned forward and kissed him. Soft, gentle, a promise. You don't have to know. You just have to try. That's all I ask. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. I can do that, he said. For you, I can do that. The next 3 days passed slowly. Caleb slept mostly. Winona stayed by his side, leaving only when Father Donnelly insisted she eat or rest. Witnesses arrived from Elkhorn Crossing. Maggie Holloway was first riding in with Sam Cole and a group of townspeople who had finally found the courage to speak. They told stories of land stolen, families, threatened men murdered and called suicides. By the time the trial began, there were 30 witnesses lined up to testify, and Marcus Harlan had nowhere left to hide. The trial was held in the fort's main hall. A military tribunal, Captain Morrison presiding. Harlan sat in chains flanked by armed guards, his face a mask of cold fury. Winona testified first. She told them everything. The massacre, the torture, the hanging, the gold Harlan had killed for, the papers that proved her people's land had been stolen through forgery and fraud. When she finished, the room was silent. Harlan's lawyer, a thin, nervous man who had arrived from Cheyenne, tried to discredit her. Called her a savage. Said her testimony couldn't be trusted. Captain Morrison shut him down with a single look. This tribunal deals in facts, Morrison said. Not prejudice, Continue. Maggie testified next. Then Sam Cole. Then a dozen other people from Elkhorn Crossing, each with their own story of Harlan's cruelty. And through it all, Harlan sat in silence. Watching. Waiting. Until Caleb took the stand. He shouldn't have been there. Patterson had forbidden it. But Caleb Thornton had never been good at following orders. He walked slowly, supported by a cane, his face pale but determined. Winona wanted to stop him, to make him rest, but she understood. This was something he needed to do. "Mr. Thornton," Morrison said, "tell us what happened." Caleb told them. About finding Winona. About choosing to help her. About facing Harlan's men and nearly dying for it. "Why?" the captain asked. "You could have walked away, given her up, saved yourself." Caleb was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "Because I spent 8 years being a coward," he said. 8 years hiding from the world, waiting to die. And when I found her, when I saw what they'd done to her, I realized something." He paused. "There are things worth dying for, but there are also things worth living for. And she—" His eyes found Winona across the room. "She reminded me what those things are." The room was silent. Even Harlan's lawyer had nothing to say. Morrison nodded slowly. "Thank you, Mr. Thornton. You may step down." The verdict came the next morning. Guilty. On all counts. Murder, fraud, conspiracy, corruption. The sentence was death by hanging. Harlan didn't react, didn't speak, just sat in his chains, staring at nothing. As the guards led him away, Winona felt Caleb's hand find hers. "It's over," he said. "Almost. Almost. There's one more thing I need to do." The hanging was scheduled for noon the next day. Winona didn't want to watch, didn't need to. But something drew her to the gallows anyway. She stood at the back of the crowd, Caleb beside her as they brought Harlan out. He was pale, shaking. The arrogance finally stripped away, revealing the frightened old man underneath. As they put the noose around his neck, his eyes found Winona. "Please," he said. His voice cracked. "Please, I'll give you anything. The land, the gold, everything. Just let me." "Let you what?" Winona stepped forward. The crowd parted for her. "Let you live, like you let my grandmother live, like you let my cousin live, like you let 37 innocent people live." Harlan had no answer. "You took everything from me," Winona said. "My family, my home, my people. And you would have taken more if we hadn't stopped you." She stepped closer. Close enough to see the tears forming in his eyes. "I could have killed you in that canyon," she said quietly. "Part of me wanted to. Part of me still does. But I won't. You know why?" He shook his head. "Because my grandmother taught me that vengeance is poison. It destroys the one who carries it." She paused. "I won't let you destroy me, Marcus Harlan. I won't let you take anything else from me. Not my soul. Not my peace. Not my future." She stepped back. "Goodbye," she said. "May the Creator have more mercy on you than you showed my people." She turned and walked away. Behind her, she heard the trapdoor open, heard the snap of the rope, heard the silence that followed. She didn't look back. Caleb was waiting for her at the edge of the crowd. "You okay?" he asked. "No," she said. "But I will be." He put his arm around her. She leaned into him, and together they walked away from the gallows toward something new. The journey back to Elkhorn Crossing took a week. Caleb was stronger now, though still far from healed. They rode slowly, stopping, often talking about everything and nothing. They talked about the future, about what came next, about the land at Crow Creek and the gold in the hidden valley. "We could be rich," Caleb said one evening. "That gold, there's enough to live like kings for the rest of our lives." "I don't want to live like a king." What do you want? Winona thought about it. I want to rebuild. The camp at Crow Creek. I want to make it a home again. A place where people can come, where they can be safe. What kind of people? Any kind. Lakota, white, anyone who needs a place to belong. She looked at him. Is that foolish? It's the least foolish thing I've ever heard. The gold can pay for it, for supplies, for buildings, for whatever we need to start over. And what about your people, the other Lakota bands? Would they come? Some might. Word travels. When they hear what happened, when they hear that Harlan is dead and the land is free, some might come. Caleb was quiet for a moment. It won't be easy. A place like that, white people and Lakota living together, a lot of folks won't understand, won't approve. Do you care about what other folks think? He laughed. I stopped caring about that a long time ago. Then what do you say? He looked at her. In his eyes, she saw something she hadn't seen before. Hope. Real hope. I say, let's build something, he said. Something worth living for. Elkhorn Crossing had changed. Winona felt it the moment they rode into town. The fear was gone. The silence was gone. People were talking in the streets, laughing. Children were playing without looking over their shoulders. Harlan's shadow had lifted. Maggie met them at the edge of town. She looked different, too younger somehow. Lighter. You did it, she said. You actually did it. We all did it, Winona replied. You, Sam, everyone who testified. But you started it. You and Caleb. You gave us hope. Maggie took Winona's hands. I never thought I'd see this day. Never thought Harlan would face justice. But you made it happen. It cost a lot. Good things usually do. They stayed in Elkhorn Crossing for a week. Long enough for Caleb to recover more fully. Long enough for word to spread about what had happened. Long enough for people to start asking questions about the future. Sam Cole came to see them on the third day. The town needs a new sheriff, he said. Someone honest. Someone who won't take bribes or look the other way. You thinking about the job? Caleb asked. I'm thinking about asking if you'd consider it. Caleb laughed. Me, sheriff, I'm a rancher. Barely that. You're a man who stood up when no one else would. That's what this town needs. I'm also a man who's been shot 3 times in the last week. I'm not exactly in fighting shape. You won't have to fight. Harlan's men are gone dead or scattered. The hard part's over. Now we just need someone to keep the peace. Someone people trust. Caleb looked at Winona. What do you think? She considered it. Sheriff of Elkhorn Crossing. It wasn't what she'd imagined. But then again, nothing about the last few weeks had been what she'd imagined. It's your decision, she said. But if you want my opinion, I do. I think you'd be good at it. And I think this town deserves someone like you. Caleb turned back to Sam. Let me think about it. Take all the time you need. The job will be here when you're ready. That night, Caleb and Winona sat on the porch of Maggie's boarding house watching the stars. Sheriff, Caleb said. Never thought I'd hear that word attached to my name. It suits you. You think so? I think you've spent your whole life protecting people. Your men in the cavalry, your wife, me. She paused. This would just be making it official. What about Crow Creek? The rebuilding you talked about. Crow Creek isn't going anywhere. We can do both. Help this town. Build something at Crow Creek. Make a life that matters. Caleb was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right, he said. Let's do it. Both. Both. All of it. Whatever you want, Winona. I'm in. She leaned against him, feeling his warmth, his strength. I never thought I'd feel this way again, she said quietly. After my husband died, I thought that part of me was gone forever. But you... I know. I feel the same way about Margaret. Do you think they'd approve our ghosts? Caleb considered it. I think Margaret would be happy I'm finally living again. And your husband? Walking Bear. Walking Bear. I think he'd be glad someone's looking after you. I don't need looking after. No, you don't. But it's nice to have someone who wants to anyway. She smiled. Yes, it is. They sat in silence watching the stars wheel overhead. There's something I need to tell you, Caleb said finally. What? I never said the words to Margaret. Not enough. I always assumed there'd be more time, and then there wasn't. Caleb, let me finish. I'm not good at this, but I need you to know. He turned to face her. I love you. I'm going to say it every day, every morning, and every night, because I don't want to make that mistake again. Winona's eyes filled with tears. I love you too, she said. And I'm going to say it every day too, because you deserve to hear it. He kissed her, soft, slow, full of promise. And somewhere above them, the stars continued their ancient dance, indifferent to the small joys and sorrows of the people below. But Winona didn't feel small anymore. She felt part of something larger, something that mattered, a new beginning. The next morning, Caleb accepted the position of sheriff. The town gathered to witness it, everyone who had helped everyone, who had hoped everyone who was ready to start over. Sam Cole pinned the badge to Caleb's chest. Congratulations, Sheriff Thornton, he said. Caleb looked down at the silver star, touched it, shook his head. Never thought I'd wear one of these. Life's full of surprises. It certainly is. Caleb looked at Winona standing in the crowd, smiling at him. It certainly is. Maggie threw a celebration that night. Food and music and laughter, things that had been rare in Elkhorn Crossing for too long. Winona danced. For the first time in years she danced. Not the formal dances of her people, but the loose, joyful movements of celebration. Caleb watched from the sidelines, his injuries still too fresh for dancing. But his eyes never left her. You're staring, Maggie said, appearing beside him. Can't help it. She's something special, that one. I know. Don't mess it up. Caleb laughed. I'll try not to. Do more than try. Women like her don't come along twice in a lifetime. You sound like you're speaking from experience. Maggie's smile faded slightly. Thomas was my once in a lifetime. Lost him to Harlan. Lost everything to Harlan. She paused. But seeing you two, seeing that there can be something good after so much bad, it gives me hope. What will you do now that Harlan's gone? Keep running the boarding house. Maybe start a school for the children. Something useful. She looked at him. What about you? Besides sheriffing? Winona wants to rebuild at Crow Creek. Make it a place where people can come together, Lakota and white, anyone who needs a home. That's ambitious. That's Winona. Maggie nodded slowly. I'd like to help, if you'll have me. We'd be honored. The music swelled. Winona appeared before them, flushed and laughing. Come dance with me, she said to Caleb. I can barely walk. Then lean on me. She took his hand and pulled him onto the floor. They moved slowly, carefully, his arms around her waist, her head against his shoulder. This is nice, she murmured. This is perfect. They swayed together in the lamplight, surrounded by people who had once been strangers and were now something like family. And for the first time in a very long time, neither of them felt alone. I want to go back, Winona said later that night. To Crow Creek, to start the work. When? Tomorrow, the next day. As soon as you're strong enough to travel. I'm strong enough now. You're barely strong enough to dance. Dancing is harder than riding. She laughed. That's definitely not true. It is when you're dancing with someone as beautiful as you. Flattery won't heal your wounds faster. Worth a try. She kissed his forehead. 3 more days. Let Patterson look at you one more time. Then we go. 3 days. 3 days. And then we start building. Caleb pulled her close. Building what exactly? A home. A community. A future. She paused. A family. He went still. Family. Someday, if you want. Caleb was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was thick. I never thought I'd have that chance again. After Margaret, after losing her, I thought that part of my life was over. And now I want everything. Everything I was too afraid to hope for. A home, a purpose, children, a life with you. Then that's what we'll build. Together. Together. She nestled against him, feeling his heartbeat steady and strong. Tomorrow they would face new challenges, new obstacles, new enemies perhaps. But tonight there was only this. Two people who had found each other in the darkness. Two broken souls learning to be whole again. Outside, the wind whispered through Elkhorn Crossing, carrying the scent of sage and promise. A new day was coming, and Winona was ready to meet it. 3 days later, they rode out of Elkhorn Crossing at dawn. Caleb sat straighter in the saddle now, his wounds healing, his strength returning. Beside him, Winona rode with her head high, her eyes fixed on the eastern horizon. Behind them, a small group followed. Maggie Holloway on a sturdy mare. Sam Cole, who had taken a leave from his deputy duties to help with the building. Two families from town who had lost everything to Harlan and wanted a fresh start. 7 people in all. Not an army, but a beginning. Nervous? Caleb asked. Winona shook her head. No, ready. Ready for what exactly? Whatever comes next. She looked at him. Are you nervous? Terrified. Of what? Of messing this up. Of not being enough. Of... Caleb. What? You saved my life. You faced an army for me. You nearly died 3 times. She reached over and took his hand. You're enough. You've always been enough. He squeezed her fingers. Keep telling me that. Every day. I promised. They rode on. The journey to Crow Creek took 4 days. 4 days of slow travel, careful navigation, and long conversations around campfires. By the time they arrived, the group had become something more than strangers. They had become the beginning of a community. Winona stopped at the ridge overlooking the valley. The place where her people had lived. The place where they had died. It looked different now. The scorched earth had been washed by rain. New grass was pushing up through the ashes. Life returning to a place of death. This is it, she said quietly. Caleb moved his horse beside hers. It's beautiful. It was more beautiful before. It will be again. She turned to face him. In his eyes she saw no pity, no empty sympathy, just determination, just love. Let's get to work, she said. The building began the next morning. They started with the basics: shelter, water, fire pits for cooking. Caleb had worked construction before years ago, and he directed the effort with quiet efficiency. Winona worked beside him, hauling logs, mixing mud for chinking, doing whatever needed to be done. Her body ached, her hands blistered, but every nail driven, every wall raised felt like a victory. Maggie organized the supplies. Sam Cole hunted for meat. The two families, the Hendersons and the Murphys, worked from sunrise to sunset without complaint. By the end of the first week, they had a structure. A single large building that would serve as a common house until individual cabins could be built. It's not much, Caleb said, surveying their work. It's everything, Winona replied. That night they ate together around a fire. 7 people who had come from different places, different lives, different wounds. But sitting there sharing food and stories, they felt like something more. A family. I want to say something, Maggie said, standing up. The firelight caught her red hair, made it glow like copper. A year ago, I thought my life was over. Thomas was dead. Harlan controlled everything. I was just waiting to die. She paused, looking at each of them in turn. "But you gave me hope," she continued. "All of you. When Winona came to my door bloody and desperate, I could have turned her away. I almost did. But something told me to let her in. And that choice, that one small choice, changed everything." "It wasn't a small choice," Winona said. "It saved my life. It saved all our lives." Maggie raised her cup. "To new beginnings, to second chances, to the family we choose." "To family," the others echoed. Caleb caught Winona's eye across the fire. She smiled. For the first time in years, the word family didn't hurt. The weeks passed. The work continued. More people came. Word had spread about what was happening at Crow Creek, a place where anyone was welcome, a place where the past didn't matter, a place where broken people could start again. A Lakota family arrived first, a widow named Singing Bird and her 2 children. They had been wandering since their band was scattered by soldiers. When they saw Winona, tears streamed down the widow's face. "We heard stories," Singing Bird said, "about a woman who faced the white judge, who brought him down. We didn't believe it was true." "It's true," Winona said. "And you're welcome here, for as long as you want to stay." Others followed. A former slave named Isaiah, who had walked all the way from Texas. A Chinese man named Wei, who had been driven out of the railroad camps. A Mexican family fleeing violence in the South. By the end of the second month, Crow Creek had 30 residents. 30 people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different lives, all of them looking for the same thing: a home. "How do you do it?" Caleb asked one night. They were lying in their cabin, a small structure he had built for them, separate from the main house, watching the fire die down to embers. "Do what?" "Make everyone feel welcome. Make them trust you. I've watched you, the way you talk to people, the way you listen. It's like a gift." Winona was quiet for a moment. "My grandmother taught me. She always said that every person carries a burden, and the kindest thing you can do is help them set it down." "That's beautiful." She was a beautiful woman. Winona paused. "I think about her every day. About all of them. Sometimes I feel guilty." "Guilty for what?" "For being happy. For building a life when they can't." Her voice caught. "For loving you when I lost so much." Caleb pulled her close. "Winona, listen to me. Being happy doesn't mean you've forgotten them. It means you're honoring them. You're living the life they would have wanted for you. You really believe that." "I know it." He kissed her forehead. "Margaret would want me to be happy. And your grandmother, she would want the same for you. The dead don't want us to suffer. They want us to live." Winona buried her face in his chest. For a long moment she just breathed, just let herself be held. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too." "Will it always hurt?" "The missing them." "Yes, but it'll hurt less. And one day the good memories will be stronger than the pain." "How do you know?" "Because I'm already there." He tilted her chin up, made her look at him. "I spent 8 years drowning in grief, and you pulled me out. You showed me that there can be joy after sorrow, light after darkness, love after loss." Tears spilled down Winona's cheeks, but she was smiling. "When did you get so wise, Caleb Thornton? Must be your influence." She laughed, a real laugh, full and warm. And in that small cabin in the middle of nowhere, 2 broken people held each other and let themselves heal. Spring came early that year. The snow melted, the river swelled, and Crow Creek burst into life. Winona walked through the settlement. She couldn't call it a camp anymore. It was too big for that, and marveled at what they had built. 20 cabins now arranged in a loose circle. A schoolhouse where Maggie taught reading and writing. A blacksmith shop run by Isaiah. A trading post managed by the Murphy family. People greeted her as she passed. Children ran between the buildings laughing. Smoke rose from chimneys. The smell of cooking filled the air. It was everything she had dreamed of, and more. She found Caleb at the edge of the settlement working on a fence. His shirt was off, his scars visible in the morning light. He saw her watching and grinned. "Like what you see?" "I like the fence. You're just in the way." He laughed and pulled her into his arms. "You wound me, woman. You'll survive. I've survived worse." They stood together looking out at the land, the green valley, the distant mountains, the blue sky stretching to forever. "We did it," Caleb said quietly. "We actually did it." "Not yet. There's still more to build, more people to help, more Winona." He turned her to face him. "Stop. Just for a minute. Look at what we've built." She looked, really looked, and she saw it, the miracle they had created from ashes and determination. "It's beautiful," she admitted. "It's home. Home." She let the word settle in her chest. "I haven't had a home in so long. You have one now. We all do." He paused. "And I want to make it official." "What do you mean?" Caleb reached into his pocket and pulled out a small object. A ring. Simple silver with a small stone that caught the light. "I found this in the trading goods, traded 3 days' worth of fence building for it." He took her hand. "Winona, I know this isn't traditional. I know it won't be easy. But I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to build with you, fight beside you, grow old with you." Winona's heart stopped, started again, pounded against her ribs. "Caleb, will you marry me?" She looked at the ring, at his face, at the hope and fear battling in his eyes. She thought about everything they had been through, the violence, the loss, the impossible odds, and she thought about everything they had built together, the community, the trust, the love. "Yes," she said. "Yes, yes." She laughed, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, I'll marry you, Caleb Thornton." He slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Then he kissed her, and the world disappeared. The wedding was held 3 weeks later. Father Donnelly came from Fort Laramie to perform the ceremony. Half the territory seemed to turn out for the celebration: soldiers from the Fort families, from Elkhorn Crossing, travelers who had heard the stories and wanted to see the famous Winona and her cowboy husband. Winona wore a dress of white buckskin, decorated with beadwork that Singing Bird had spent weeks creating. Caleb wore his best suit, the only suit he owned, with his sheriff's badge polished to a shine. They stood in the center of the settlement, surrounded by everyone they loved. "Do you, Caleb Thornton, take this woman to be your wife?" Father Donnelly asked. "I do." "Do you, Winona, take this man to be your husband?" She looked at Caleb, at the man who had found her hanging from a tree, who had faced an army for her, who had nearly died more than once because he refused to let her go. "I do," she said, "with all my heart. Then, by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife." Father Donnelly smiled. "You may kiss the bride." Caleb kissed her. The crowd cheered. And somewhere in a place beyond seeing Winona felt her grandmother smile. The celebration lasted well into the night. Food and music and dancing and laughter, the kind of joy that only comes after great sorrow. Winona danced with everyone. With Caleb, with Maggie, with the children who had adopted her as a sort of collective mother, with the settlers and soldiers and travelers who had come to witness this impossible union. And through it all, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Complete. "You look happy," Caleb said, pulling her aside as the night grew late. "I am happy. I never thought I'd see you dance like that. I never thought I'd have a reason to." He took her hand, the one with the ring, and kissed her fingers. "Come with me," he said. "There's something I want to show you." They slipped away from the celebration, walking hand in hand through the darkness. Caleb led her up the ridge to the spot where they had first looked down on the valley. "Look," he said. Winona looked. Below them, Crow Creek glowed with 100 fires. The sound of music drifted up on the wind. The lights twinkled like earthbound stars. "I remember when I first came here," she said quietly. "After the massacre, there was nothing, just ashes and silence. And now there's life. Now there's life." She leaned against him. "We did this, Caleb. We built this. You built this. I just helped. We built it together. That's what matters." She paused. "I used to think that strength meant being alone, surviving without help, needing no one. But I was wrong. What do you think now?" "I think strength is knowing when to ask for help, when to let people in, when to trust." She looked up at him. "You taught me that. You and Maggie and everyone else. Strength isn't about being alone. It's about being together." Caleb was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was thick. "Margaret would have loved you. I wish you could have met her. I wish I could have met her too. She always wanted children. We tried, but—" He stopped, swallowed. "It never happened. And then she got sick and there was no more time." Winona took his hand. "There's time now." He looked at her, hope and fear in his eyes. "You mean—" "I want children, Caleb. With you. Not to replace what we've lost, but to create something new. Something that comes from both of us." "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." He pulled her into his arms, held her tight. "I love you," he whispered into her hair. "I love you so much it scares me sometimes." "I know. I feel the same way." They stood there on the ridge holding each other, looking down at the world they had built. And Winona made a silent vow. To her grandmother, to Walking Bear, to everyone she had lost. "I will honor your memory. I will live the life you wanted for me. I will love and be loved and create something beautiful from the ashes of what was destroyed. This is my promise. This is my prayer." The first child came a year later. A girl with her mother's dark eyes and her father's stubborn chin. They named her Margaret after the woman Caleb had loved and lost. "She's beautiful," Maggie said, holding the baby in the first light of dawn. "Absolutely beautiful." "She has her father's nose," Winona said. "Poor thing," Caleb replied. Winona laughed. "I like your nose." "You're the only one." They were in their cabin, larger now, expanded to fit their growing family. Outside, Crow Creek stirred to life. The sounds of a community waking, children laughing, animals calling, the rhythm of daily life. "I never thought I'd have this," Caleb said, looking at his daughter. "Never thought I deserved it." "You deserve everything," Winona said. "You deserve happiness and love and a family. You deserve all of it." "So do you." "I know." She smiled. "I finally know." The years passed. The community grew. More families came. More cabins were built. A church went up and a general store and a proper school. The railroad arrived, bringing trade and travelers and news from the wider world. Caleb served as sheriff for 10 years. Then he retired, passing the badge to Sam Cole, and devoted himself full-time to the settlement, to the land, to his family. 3 more children came, 2 boys and another girl. A household full of noise and chaos and love. Winona became a leader, not by title, but by example. People came to her with problems, with disputes, with questions about life and death and everything in between. She listened to them all, helped them when she could. And always, always, she remembered her grandmother's words. Every person carries a burden. The kindest thing you can do is help them set it down. Maggie lived to see her 70th birthday. She died peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by the children she had taught to read and the community she had helped to build. At her funeral, Winona spoke. "Maggie Holloway saved my life," she said. "When I came to her door beaten and bloody and hunted, she let me in. She didn't have to. She had every reason not to. But she did. And because of that choice, that one moment of courage, everything changed." She paused, looking out at the crowd, at the faces of people who had come from everywhere, drawn by the promise of Crow Creek, of a place where the past didn't matter, where everyone was welcome. "That's what this place is about," she continued. "One moment of courage, one choice to be kind, one decision to help instead of turn away. That's how we built this community. That's how we'll keep building it." Caleb stood beside her, his hair gray now, his face lined with years. But his eyes were the same, still full of love, still full of determination. "Maggie showed us what was possible," Winona said. "Now it's up to us to keep that possibility alive, for our children, for their children, for everyone who comes after." She looked at her husband, at the man who had found her hanging from a tree and decided to fight the world for her. "We've been given a gift," she said. "A second chance, a new beginning. Let's not waste it." The final years were quiet ones. The kind of peace that comes after a lifetime of struggle. Caleb's body grew frail, but his spirit never dimmed. He spent his days on the porch of their cabin watching his grandchildren play, telling stories of the old days to anyone who would listen. Winona stayed by his side, always, just as she had promised. One evening as the sun set over the mountains, Caleb took her hand. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For everything. For saving me. For loving me. For giving me a life worth living. You saved me first. I cut you down from a tree. You gave me a reason to live." He smiled. "I think you got the better end of that deal. I think we both won." He nodded slowly. His eyes were growing heavy. His breathing was shallow. "I'm tired, Winona." "I know. I think it's time." Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't look away. "I'll be right here," she said. "I'm not going anywhere." "I know." He squeezed her hand. "That's how I know I can let go." She leaned down and kissed him. One last time. "I love you, Caleb Thornton." "I love you too. Always." His eyes closed, his breathing slowed, and then peacefully, quietly, he was gone. Winona sat with him until the stars came out, until the cabin grew cold and dark, until the grief had washed through her like a river and left her empty and clean. Then she stood, walked to the door, looked out at the community they had built together. Crow Creek stretched before her, alive with light and sound. Hundreds of people now, a town really, a testament to what could be built from ashes and determination and love. She thought about Caleb, about Margaret, the daughter who carried his stubbornness and her grandmother's wisdom, about the grandchildren who would grow up in a world he had helped to create. She thought about her grandmother, about Walking Bear, about everyone she had lost along the way. And she realized something that felt like truth. They were all still with her, in the wind that blew through the valley, in the laughter of children, in the walls of every building and the heart of every person who called Crow Creek home. The dead don't leave us. They become part of us, part of everything we build. Winona stepped off the porch and walked into the evening. Her children would come soon, her grandchildren. The whole community would gather to mourn and to celebrate and to remember. But for now, she walked alone. Through the streets of the town she had built, past the schoolhouse and the church and the trading post, to the ridge where she and Caleb had stood on their wedding night, looking down at the future they would create. She stood there as the stars wheeled overhead, and she smiled. Because this was not an ending. This was a beginning. A new chapter in a story that would continue for generations, in the children who would grow up here, in the families who would come seeking hope, in the simple truth that love once given never truly dies. Winona took a deep breath, let it out slowly. Behind her, the lights of Crow Creek twinkled like earthbound stars. Ahead of her, the future stretched out vast and unknown and full of possibility, and she walked forward to meet it. Because that's what survivors do. That's what lovers do. That's what family does. They keep going. They keep building. They keep loving, no matter what. And Winona, daughter of the Lakota widow of Walking Bear, wife of Caleb Thornton, mother and grandmother and leader of a community that should never have existed. Winona had learned this truth the hard way. But she had learned it, and she would never forget. Some things are worth dying for. But more importantly, some things are worth living for. Love, family, hope, the chance to build something that will outlast us all. That is the legacy of Crow Creek. That is the legacy of two broken people who found each other in the darkness. And that legacy would endure for 100 years, for 1,000, forever.